Did you know you could blur your sprites like this in Scratch? And it's actually really easy to do as well. Okay, so let's say you have a sprite like this for background and you want to make it blurry. First thing you need to do is just shrink this down very far. And the farther down you shrink it, the blurrier it's going to be. I think this is good. Now we convert to bitmap and convert back to vector. And you can see the sprite is already pixelated. And then this next part now is really important. Come out gradually. Okay. Don't just shrink it down and then make it very big all at once again. I'll explain why in a bit. And now we have a perfectly blurry version of our original sprite here. You can just grow this to cut out the edges, unless you want the edges blurry like that as well. Other than that, you can just cut it out, convert back to bitmap, and then trim the edges. I'll explain the do's and don'ts of this. Let's get another sprite. Okay, so let's say you have a sprite like this. If you convert it to bitmap, you can see it just converts all the pixels directly. It doesn't smoothen out the edges at all. But if you convert back to vector, and then you resize this, let's say you make it smaller, and then back to bitmap, you can see it starts to smoothen out the edges just a little bit. And so if you don't go down too far, you can actually use this to smoothen out the edges of your sprites as well without having to export them in another program. But back to the pros and cons now. If we shrink this down very far, okay, and another thing to keep in mind is always have your sprite centralized. So if you shrink this down very far, convert to bitmap, and then you convert back to vector, and then you grow it all the way, you can kind of already see how this is going to be a problem. So you convert to bitmap and see it blurs it pretty well, but you can still kind of see the pixels, and you get this weird irritating thing here I call a straight edge blur, because the blur wants to go past this point. But if we switch here, you can see this is actually where the sprite limits are. So we need it to blur evenly and smoothen out and, you know, disappear before it gets to this edge, not blur into the edge, so we don't get this weird thing here. Okay, so there's several ways to avoid this. One is to do it the way I showed you. Shrink it down very small, keep your sprites centralized, and then start coming out gradually, okay, to result in an overall smoother design. Okay, so as you can see, blur is much smoother here, and you have all these soft edges instead of the hard edge of this. Okay, so now that you know how to blur your sprites perfectly, what are the uses for this? There's actually quite a few really cool uses for this. So the first is you can use it to smoothen out the edges of your sprites. The second, you can use it to blur your game background. And another thing is you can actually use it to add a drop shadow to objects as well. Okay, so we have this really cool text here. If you want to see how I created this, check out this video. I'll also leave a link in the description. So right now the text is just flat against the background. It doesn't look that bad. So we can give it more dimension and add a bit more depth if we give it a drop shadow. Okay, so let's see. Copy this last line, paste that, alright. And now whatever qualities you give this is obviously the qualities your drop shadow is going to have. Okay, so let's try and make this darker. We increase the transparency just that much, alright, and then we remove the fill because we don't need that. Right, and now we convert to bitmap. Okay, and convert back to vector. Remember, shrink it down as far as you want to go. The smaller you go, the blurrier it gets. And then centralize it, very important, blur, and then we grow gradually. Okay, and now we copy this, paste it here, make sure it's roughly the same size as this, right? Maybe slightly bigger. Then we send it to the back and move it down. You can see that looks so much better. Okay, it's not just flat against the background anymore. Just give it a bit more context without drop shadow, with drop shadow, without drop shadow, with drop shadow. Okay, you can see how much of a difference that makes. Alright, so if you want to make it even blurrier, obviously you know what to do. If you want to make the shadow darker, you know what to do. If you want to make it a different color, you know what to do. Okay, so that's it about the drop shadow. And obviously you can do this with any shape as well, not just text. You can use it to add shadow to objects and a bunch of other things in your game or your project. So next, another thing you can do is you can also use it to add glow to your sprites. I'll just copy this top line here, paste it in a new costume, duplicate this, and then we'll make this thicker, and let's make this 50. Move that up. Do our old trick again, bitmap, vector, shrink it down, and then you come out gradually. Okay, now we copy this, paste it here, send it back, and then we line it up with the text, and you can see now that looks like a neon sign. And you can also use it to add glow to a bunch of other things as well. You know, it doesn't have to be text alone. You can use it to add to your sprites to make them look cooler. You can use it to create a bunch of other really cool effects, and these are just the ones I've discovered. I mean, there could be like a whole lot more you can do with this. So just, you know, as usual, go crazy with this, see what else you can do. That looks so much better. Okay, so as a bonus for making it this far into the video, here's a tip for you. when you're adding glow to your sprite, one very easy way to do it is to just make it a circle, and this works especially well if your sprite is more or less round or square. You know, they're not exactly long in one direction. If they're very compact and rounded, you can just use a circle most of the time. Let's just say make this transparent and then we'll make this orange, right? And that works. The sprite looks like it's glowing and no one's the wiser. In fact, a lot of games actually use it like this for art style purposes and stuff, and it looks good. But what if you have a sprite that's long? Okay, so let's say you have this text and you want to add a glow to it instead of a drop shadow. You can't exactly use the circle method anymore, because one, when you stretch out sprites that have this radial gradient on them in Scratch, it keeps the perfect roundness of the gradient, and then you get all these hard edges here, which is not what we're looking for, okay, at all. So one way you can combat that is just copy the sprite, then convert it to bitmap and back to vector, and now you can stretch it over the entire sprite, and you know, you still have that smooth edge all around. And this looks okay, this doesn't look half bad, but you can take it a step further and stretch it out to make it look like this, and this looks so much better. So basically what I did was just stretch out this circle that I already converted to bitmap. So if you want to see how to stretch out bitmap sprites like this without losing the integrity, check out this project here. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. And so if you learned something from this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and also share the channel with your friends. I'm going to be posting a lot more videos like this. I'm excited to see what you guys create with this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.